Hey, remember the Gina Rinehart Christmas party that we showed last year? We got sent another video, and it's even more cringy. And here are the highlights from us streaming it. Turn your brain off. Word to the wise. It's the only way you're going to be able to get through it. And pretty much the only way that you'd also be able to get through my brand new show about UFOs, which, links below, you can get tickets if you're in the following towns. We are going to be discussing a most recent birthday bash that was uploaded to Hancock Prospecting that was unlisted. I have heard that it's not as juicy as the one that we originally put out, but there might be some gold in there, who knows. Oh, listen to that country twang. I wonder how these guys voted in the WA election. Well, it does look sickly catered. Come on. I suppose that's what you should expect if you are the richest woman in Australia by a mile. Well, the grub's good.
Tonight's a fantastic night, and the one thing that's...
Oh, yes! The bad South African MC is back with a vengeance! Oh, I've missed you, buddy. I've really missed the way that you really suck at introducing things.
People come to me and they really said how grateful they are for everything the company does for them, and that we're a company that's really caring. And the thing that stands out for me is it's not something that as just a few of us are doing. It started right from the top. It started with Mrs. Rinehart. Mrs. Rinehart's absolute passion for the company, a passion for the people.
Man, could you imagine if you had to suck up to Gina Rinehart for your existence? I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of people in the comments right now that do have to do that. But imagine being this guy. His job must be 90% professional yes man. What else do you think he does to sit there all day and go, that's a great idea, Gina, right you are. What else do you think he does? Yes, go on.
The raffle like what we're going to have tonight. Whichever company does what we're going to do tonight, pull a bunch of people's names out of the hat, and next week they've got $100,000 in their bank account.
Oh, what the hell? No, that is bullshit. I was going to sit there and be like, and who else has a company raffle where you get a free meat tray at the end? If you win. If you come second, you don't get shit. $100,000, better than Oprah.
It makes a real difference. And one of the best things ever is when you, afterwards, if you take that phone and you phone people and you inform them they've actually won.
Please observe the top of that guy's head. Surely he should pull a Peter Dutton. Buddy, the dream's over. You can't do anything about that.
Hello, everybody. And thank you for those wonderful messages and stories from across our businesses. It's especially wonderful to know our staff say they've never worked for a better company than ours. Reaching a decade or more with one company is a remarkable stretch. You might be interested to know research shows, on average, Australian workers spend just 3 years and 4 months with one company or employer, which makes your decade or more a very special achievement.
Hang on, are they going to whinge? I want them to whinge about taxes again. Bring out the classic hits.
The larger government gets, the less individual freedoms you have. Your freedoms have just been eroded year after year with more and more government, laws and regulations and regulatory authorities. End quote.
Is this another South African accent that I detect? Why are there so many South Africans that are just unspeakably evil? It's just, you got Elon Musk, you got Peter Thiel, you've got the former host of The Daily Show, whatever he was. And then you got these guys. You got these guys here, standing around there. Look, oh my God. I can't believe how culty it is. They've created an Elon Musk plaque. Oh, a quote of his. Just another one of his autistic Spurg rambles. They've just immortalized it forever. Yes, we've put it in titanium. This needs to read the H's. This one right here.
Now is not the time for rhinos or linos.
Oh, yes, here we go.
Peanut was a harmless orphan squirrel, greatly loved by a New York couple who took him in and looked after him for 7 happy years, only to be devastated by 4 government agencies invading their home for 5 hours, ramshacking it to find their well-loved, clearly healthy squirrel and take it away.
And that's why the government's evil. Government overreach. About this poor, hapless squirrel. Look at the money that they have for something that I am sure that there is another side of the story to this. I'm absolutely sure about that. But let's just have a look at them commemorating the poor squirrel. Look at him up there, forever immortalized at the top. No, no, my delicious pet, no. What?
That innocent squirrel head was guillotined, and the couple permanently lost a loved member.
I probably should have waited till the next part of the story. That is truly tragic. I'm very sad about that squirrel now.
Two, actually. Fred, their raccoon, was guillotined too. Some of you may remember I published a book on our bureaucracy experience, launched by Prime Minister Modi. With his permission, borrowing the phrase he made famous for my title, From Red Tape to Red Carpet. Sadly, since book and even the annual National Mining Days are founded, things haven't got better. In fact, they've gotten worse, far worse. This is something we all need to be aware of, as it doesn't just affect companies, but affects all of your and your family's futures so badly that, as the MCA has reported, 80% of projects in the reported pipeline are now the casualty list. The importance of this 80% can be better understood when you add up the revenues of all non-mining businesses. Their total together is less than our essential mining industry. Villains of our living standards, we've had a record 7 consecutive quarters of falling living standards, falling investment, record business failures, including anti-mining policies like nature positive, mining negative, Australia negative.
Okay, so here's another thing that they clearly hate about the Labor Party, the nature positive plan. They hate the nature positive plan. Let's just quickly read up on that. Because it has been a while that it was instilled, but this is, I think, world-leading environmental reform. It's been almost 2 years since the Australian government signed up for the ambitious targets of the latest International Biodiversity Agreement. Now, that's something else that's really big about the Labor Party that I keep forgetting to spruik, but that is huge, isn't it? The fact that they had a zero target of special extinctions, a net zero target of that, and the original idea was to get all of this framework and set in place that was obviously held up by the crossbench. But it was to put up all of this framework that was going to trigger all of these laws that go into place as soon as a species starts getting its numbers under. And they're talking now, the mining industry is talking about the fact that this nature positive plan, which just means that the environment has to come out better when you are doing these development structures. The mining industry hates that. This is another reason why they're trying to get rid of the Labor government. This is their stated reason for why they want them gone, the nature positive plan. Let's continue reading on about it. As we write this, the federal government is preparing to host for the first global nature positive summit in October. This is an important time to reflect on the progress in addressing alarming rates of biodiversity loss. Yes, okay, so why does it matter? Yeah, can you just get to the point? Australia's Nature Positive Plan sets out ambitious reforms to legal and policy settings to support nature positive outcomes, but implementation has been slow and difficult, obviously. Of course it would have been. Any environmental policy is always just going to be like pulling teeth. It always takes forever for it to go through. While we now have the foundations of the new national repair market intended to attract private investment to environmental restoration, the details are still being developed. It's unclear whether there'll be sufficient market demand to drive private investment in nature repair, or indeed whether there's sufficient capacity or interest across the land sector. Alongside new markets, reform for our national environmental laws are crucial to stem cumulative adverse impacts on the ecosystem that are long overdue. Yeah, that's right. That's what this is. The Nature Positive Plan, the reason that it is world leading is because it is trying to set up a market for nature restoration. As in, there is going to be a private industry set up around restoring the nature of this country. Huge move. That is private investment that will be put into this. Now, again, because it is world leading stuff, we don't really know how this is going to work. There is no frame for this. This is new frontier territory stuff. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Anyway, obviously, the mining lobby hates it because the whole thing is there's always just going to be that test factor there of the environment can't be worse off because of your actions. And so they have to factor that into their projects. And they obviously hate that.
The Paris Accord related onerous and complicated government tape and regulations, adding huge expense and adding more bureaucracy, and all of this paid for by you. Did you know the size of the Canberra bureaucracy is forecast to grow from 173,558 to 209,150 this year, which is what you're all paying for.
The thing that's terrible about that argument is that, first off, it's not a huge public service. Australia has like quite an efficient public service in comparison to a lot of the rest of the developed world. But another thing is that you cut jobs out of the public service. They don't just not get done. They just get moved to consultancy firms. I was just reading a report recently that was from New South Wales Labor. They did a commission into, is it really efficient to go and look into consultants? And the conclusion was, no, it's double the price of getting the public sector to do the same job. But that same job will get done because the government still needs to function. It's just that they privately outsource it to consultancy firms. So when they're sitting there and saying, oh, public sector is growing, the reason that the public sector is growing mostly, honestly, is because the Labor Party has saved us billions of dollars from being spent on consultants. And instead they thought, we'll get the public sector to do exactly the same job cheaper, more efficiently and better.
Today, we are witnessing a moment when the long march of the state over the individual is being rejected in country after country after country. I am referring, of course, to the collapse of the collectivist model of the party state and the dawn of a new era of freedom.
How scary is it that they have pictures of world leaders, insane world leaders, the Argentina guy, but they also are standing behind a creepily lit mansion while they're all there in candlelight? Gentlemen, I present to you our plan for the future. Behold, the guy that clearly has mental issues. We want someone like that leading the country.
A crucial battle for the future of humanity. We must understand where we stand and what we are up against in order to know where we want to go. Throughout the world, Western societies face the same problem and the same negative enemy. A political class that extracts more and more resources from citizens through taxes in order to implement a model of bureaucratic expansion.
It's really weird listening to their worldview, isn't it? Because first off, guys, you're a company. Why are you so political? Why is the mining industry so political? And on top of that, they've been in a 100-year winning streak at this point. Why do they constantly feel like power is slipping away from them, and that they're also at the vanguard of this brand new era of ushering in a new world where they're still killing it? Why do they have this view? And what do they think is really the massive difference of the new era is coming? What is it? Peter Dutton. What's Peter Dutton? Basically exactly the same policies as Tony Abbott. It's going to be amazing.
Who does not possess a crystal ball, but that seeks to regulate every aspect of people's lives, honouring one of the maxims of Benito Mussolini's fascism. Within the state, everything. Outside the state, nothing. And nothing against the state. This political class or bureaucracy is an extended caste whose members, beyond superficial differences, share the fundamental idea of the implementation of the advance of the state over individuals. That's over you and over me.
But what do you want in return? What is your ideal society? Is it just to cut the government? That chainsaw guy. Is that it? Because it really seems like your alternative to the government is just to have a corporate government. You basically can set up your own shitty version of the government, the mining giants that you are. You do have the capital for that. You do have the infrastructure and investments. And what is that? That is just another form of bureaucracy. It's a much worse, much scarier form of bureaucracy, but that seems to be what they're gunning for.
Or are immersed in ideological propaganda, devoid of common sense, or are naive to where such path leads.
Not common anymore, common sense.
Work for the interests of the state. The traditionally left media, the bureaucratic, non-entrepreneurial businessmen or power and or favour seekers. The generations of permanent bureaucrats who are not elected, and their academic institutions that provide the theoretical framework and propaganda for state expansion. And all those who in some way belong to the cult of world collectivism. And of course, this includes the traditionally political parties which, regardless of their name, follow the fundamental thesis that more state is better. In Argentina, for example, we had a political system made up of 50 shades of socialism. In the United States, there was the illusion of bipartisanship with a Democratic Party that set the agenda and a Republican Party incapable of confronting it. That is, until the arrival of President Donald Trump.
It's honestly quite strange watching our overlords, because they have this weird simp worship of overseas leaders. These are the guys that are supposed to be as patriotic as it gets. The mining industry is the backbone of Australia. The economy builder. If it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have the movie Red Dog. These guys are always endlessly simping about the Argentinian president and Trump. And why are they always simping about them? I think it's just because of the vibe of them. They don't ever seem to really have any grounded opinions on this. They're very, very, very political. Endlessly, they're constantly whining about being regulated by the Labor Party. Endlessly. But then they're constantly also just saying, oh, here's our different worldview. The Republicans sucked for some reason at some point in history. They only stopped sucking when they had a really charismatic Riz Lord at the top. That was it. But if you go and watch anything that Donald Trump has implemented, so we're banning plastic straws, and then you just see the CEO of petrochemical companies behind him saying, I personally think this is a great executive order. It's all just standard Republican stuff. And also just a very strange view of things to say that the Democrats in the United States are the ones that are pushing the agenda forward, and they're the ones that are controlling the narrative in the United States. When you have the Republicans that frequently, obviously they got it recently, but the popular vote they usually never get, they are the ones that have an explicit strategy of going after the courts. They don't seem to really care that much about winning elections. They care only about winning elections more so that they can stack the courts. These are the people that are setting the narrative. We know for a fact, I remember reading something the other day that was like, if Fox News didn't exist, just Fox News by itself, the Republican presidential vote would be like 4% lower. What the hell is he talking about? That the Democrats are the ones that set the narrative in the United States. It's all feel. It's all feel about Donald Trump. I wish that I had his Riz, and that's why he's awesome. They also obviously get some general sense that, yeah, as soon as he's in, he just cuts back the government to just a guy holding a briefcase with the nuclear codes. That's awesome too. I don't understand why they throw the rest of the Republican Party under the bus. Donald Trump is just the Republican Party, but with Trump flavoring.
President Trump is an outsider, just like me, because the task before us...
I've never heard someone unironically make that sentence before. Donald Trump is an outsider, like me. You know, the former president of the United States, the current one as well. He's an outsider, like me. I'm, both of us, rebels. Rebels with a cause, though. I can't really articulate what the cause is. It's something about cutting government, that's it. But I don't really understand what government is. I just know that it's bad because Mussolini said that the state is good at some point in his life.
Patriotic leaders who owe
Look at
nothing
this!
to anyone.
Hancock prospecting is weirdly culty. It's really scary. They just keep blasting across these huge projectiles. Pictures of their heroes. And, of course, Gina Rinehart, I don't even know if she's there. I think she just wants worship kind of knowing that it's there. Just this Mr. Burns character. If you turn your head, all of Australia has written out your name in candles. Bad, no time. Look at this photo. Look at that. It's so scary how much time she spends with Donald Trump, because it's also this thing of, aren't you the president of the United States? Don't you have better things to do than to talk to this gimp? Gina Rinehart is a real idiot. I don't understand why she's so important to you. Did she donate that much money to the Republican cause? Why does he have so much access to? Why? This is what freaks me out about Hancock prospecting, right? This is what freaks me out about them. Gina Rinehart is part of the MAGA cult, massively, to the degree that she must be donating money to Donald Trump. Why else would he be hanging out with her? There is no reason. But all of Hancock prospecting is in a cult-like worship of Gina Rinehart, and then she moves that cult-like worship to Donald Trump. And also the other thing is, I really don't understand how you have the time to run the mining industry and just sit there and endlessly, I think, get mad about tweets online. You have that visage about you now, don't you, Gina? You have that same angry boomer thing of sitting there all day. Hey, government. Hey, Trump makes me happy. I hate the government.
The modern state has more tools, which have grown in sophistication over time. We're not talking about an obvious state like the neo-fascist or communist one, but rather a subtle and insidious state which advances on the individual through art, propaganda, and cultural infiltration. I'm talking about the financing of academia, encouraging the elaboration of studies that justify the implementation of interventionist public policies and the direction of media outlets. I'm talking about the subsidies to culture to produce propaganda. And here in the United States, the USAID scandal, which allocated millions of dollars from taxpayers to finance everything from magazines and television channels to DEI and electoral fraud.
Do they know what they're talking about anymore? It's honestly the WA heat, isn't it? They just go off on a boomer rant. And it obviously is always going to get directed back to DEI. How can you keep complaining about millions of dollars when you're Hancock prospecting? I'm sure that event that you're putting on now cost millions of dollars. These are peanuts to you. I think they are genuinely concerned about it as well. But they're genuinely concerned about what is absolute pennies of the US budget in Australia, in Western Australia.
The governments with discriminatory aspirations, among many other aberrations, including the agenda of climate paranoia, the excesses of gender ideology, and the lab research that led to the creation of COVID.
What?
In short, I'm talking about a global network.
He just slips that conspiracy in at the end. Look, dude, I'm not one of those people that's outright just going to dismiss that, no, the COVID lab, it's just absolute lies. But it's not a proven thing. Oh, it's just nothing but Facebook feeds feeding these people, and then they are spending millions and millions of dollars reconvincing themselves of what they saw on Facebook. Oh, it's so annoying because it is just your boomer uncle. It is your boomer uncle that, but for whatever reason, this one gets a sick house. I just don't understand how the world works anymore. It's all confusing to me. They don't seem to have any consistent narratives. They don't seem to really want anything anymore. They seem to have so much control over society, but they have this general sense that power seems to be slipping away from them, even though it clearly isn't. That they're not even making economic sense anymore. They're ranting about Doge findings of alleged, very, very scary information as well. It was DEI the dip in somewhere in America.
A propaganda apparatus unprecedented in human history. Perhaps the largest political scandal that we have ever seen. Beyond their obvious incompetence, the political class is not dedicated to solving problems. After all, a problem solved is an area from which the state must withdraw. On the contrary, the political class is dedicated to perpetuating problems and thus living off them forever. That is why they live, creating new problems, installing them from their propaganda machines to then offer themselves as a solution. And what does that solution consist of? The implementation of regulations that cause even more problems and expense, to be added by more regulations again. In medicine, the term iatrogenesis is used to refer to the damage suffered by a patient as a consequence of medical care. It could be said then that the statist regime consists of iatrogenesis as a state policy. Today, those of us who want to dismantle this dangerous or insane system are called anti-democratic. But again, this is a misinterpretation of words, something very typical of the left. They do not call democracy the government of the people, by the people, but the paradigm of unlimited state expansion that they themselves then administer.
Who is this person? See, this is what you sound like, Reddit, when you just endlessly trail off your words like statist, socialist utopia. This is what the left does. You're just that. But like, you've got different words in your head that are good or bad.
Today, our countries, Argentina and the United States, need to go through a second independence. The first freed us from European monarchies. The second will free us from the tyranny of the state party. That is why we have put effort into identifying it, because you cannot fight against that you do not know. Having a well-defined enemy is a fundamental aspect of our cultural battle. Now we know it, we have won the elections, and we are in the process of disarming its tool of perpetual oppression. We do not have any secret formula to disarm.
Look, all right, I'm going to fast forward. Let's see. Apparently there's some performances at the end. Yes, all right, we're watching this and we're finishing off. How could you not? What a bang. What a way to end the party.
So can we please, as you saw them on Sky News, and soon to be on TikTok,
as seen on Sky News, get ready for entertainment.
can we please invite the incredible, the awesome, the one and only Roy Hill Choir.
In the heart of the outback, where the iron ore
It is a cult! Oh my god, she forces her employees to get into little choir grounds, and they're so happy about it too. Look at these old women. Yay, I'm part of the Gina Rinehart cheer squad. Oh my god, they make songs about how awesome she is after she sits there and rails endlessly about how much she gets other people. She can't even be bothered to sit there and talk about how much she likes the Argentinian president and the American president gets some other South African. She pays him to do it. Yeah, I'll give you citizenship if you do it. Come over here. Now, let's go on to there's guys in there. It's even sadder looking at their outfits. And their little ties.
Serving staff shining year after year. We celebrate your service with pride and cheer. To our Lord,
Well, she did the primary school thing. She did the primary school teacher. Smile, everybody. Remember, you're happy. Look, you don't have to do that to me. I am a happy boy. Oh, this is terrifying.
loyalty, you help us find our place. Your commitment and strength set a steady pace. The mighty world.
They're all doing it now. That's so scary. Dude, even the people in the audience, they can sit there and talk about state Stalinism and how much they hated the government so much. But come on. How Soviet Union is that? That's right. Everybody's happy, especially your mom. We know she's in the audience. Also, you know that you are not working very hard as a composer if you have time to do that. And just remember, at the Stanford, you get extra points for presentation. So everybody has to have a nice hat. Jared, I told you 1,000 times, put your tag underneath your shirt. Underneath! Oh, look. Look, it's just flailing in the wind. Oh, you've ruined the whole aesthetic.
From the depths of the earth to the force so grand, your efforts build our future, shaping this land, creating jobs and wealth, securing our fate.
What is happening to everyone there? Do they know that they are in jeopardy of being fired? Because they all have that really creepy Scientology, yeah, everything's fine. They've got that, all of them. The people that are filming. I don't even know why they're filming. Are they filming just so they can say, look, I was the good employee. Do I get the credit points?
Mining industry makes Australia great. To our loyalty, you help us find our place. Your commitment and strength set a steady pace. The mighty world.
Feel a bit mean saying this, but come on. None of them can hold a tune, can they? It does sound like your primary school choir. When you walked out, yeah, I think we did pretty good. And then you do get the recording and listen back to it. Ugh, I don't think I know what a flat note is properly.
Your contributions we can't ignore. In Hancock companies, your loyalty shines bright. Together we build, together we unite. To our loyalty, you help us find our place.
Are you hearing this? This corporation, as much as they can sit there and rail about how they're these bastions of freedom, everything about this reigns on two levels at once. It reeks of Soviet-style command shit. It also reeks of cult-like behavior. Really culty. Who the hell has an entire chorus about loyalty embedded into a song, forced to be played while you're not even there? I don't even think that Gina's there, unless she can't even be bothered and she's just pigging out in the corner. I need a cake. I don't care, I've heard this song before. Make him play it anyway.
Mighty world, we make Australia great. Your hard work and dedication, we celebrate. Let the fun begin with hopes and cheers, shouting, win, baby, win! To our long-serving staff, we raise a cheer for all you've done. We thank you here. Baby, thank you!
Well, that was great. Hey, soon to be on TikTok. I'm sure that that's going to go gangbusters, don't you? I mean, if there was an ideal world that we lived in, yes, it would. That was very sad. That was very, very sad. It always just surprises me every time I see anything out of Hancock Prospecting. What a strange little alternate universe this entire place is. And I guess that's just what happens when you have unfettered money. You slowly go la 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 la.
Spread birthday cheer. Here we go. Drill, baby, drill. Dig, baby, dig. Our pride in Roy Hill makes our hearts grow so big. With the chairman's guidance, we reach new heights. Many thanks to all, and may our dreams take flight.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Drill, baby, drill the song. Why isn't this on Sky News more? Guys, let's be honest. You've got a lot of time to fill. You can't just be whinging endlessly about Anthony Albanese and he made the wrong hand gestures that day that make him seem like a weak leader. You have other things in your lineup. That's what makes a great show. And I think that if you really made this your all-star lineup, surely you can get rid of Chris Kenny at this point. This is far more interesting than that. And it gets the message through in a musical fun way. I mean, this basically is just Sky News the musical.
With safety and care, we strive every day to make sure we shine in every way. You know it. Drill, baby, drill. Dig, baby, dig. Our pride in Roy Hill makes our hearts grow so big. With the chairman's guidance, we reach new heights.
Can you imagine being in your 50s or 60s and singing, with the chairman's guidance, we reach new heights? I mean, I'm pretty sure even in cults, they don't make grandmas sing that stuff. That's for the kids. Oh, a real wash of empathy just went over me thinking about the fact that I can't imagine being at that age and going, yay, I love Gina. I'm going to sit through hours and hours of boring, catered shows of shitty slides of Elon Musk with chainsaws. Isn't it strange also thinking that Gina Rinehart obviously at some point thought, how about we start a choir for the employees? That'll raise the cheer. That should sing for me too.
To our dear chairman, we give our thanks for leading us forward through all the ranks. Your wisdom and strength light up our way. We honor you greatly on this special day. As the years go by and the future nears, we reflect on our journey with joy and with cheer. Together we've built a legacy grand. Roy Hill forever, united we stand.
Well, anyway, that was very enlightening. I think that we all learned something today, which is that Hancock Prospecting is even scarier than we thought. We're becoming connoisseurs on this, aren't we? I wish we weren't. My big gripe, as always, when it comes to the mining overlords of this country is, I just wish that they were smarter people. I really do. I really hate the fact that they're so dumb that they are just a bunch of MAGA supporters that you would see at a NASCAR. Like just one of those like, yeah, introducing Donald Trump while he's driving around in the motorcade. Yeah, Trump! And then you have Gina Rinehart, who's worth billions of dollars next to that here. Yeah, Trump! This is the woman that controls this country. She has the wealth to do that. She has the wealth to instill her will into the opposition to the point that Peter Dutton reluctantly has to sit there while she goes, I think we should have our own Doge. And then Peter Dutton has to go, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. Isn't it scary? A lot of the intellectual hardware of this country, when it comes to the quote unquote Liberal Party here, their job is to try and get her nonsensical tweets and try and jam them into the bureaucracy to make that reality. The mind of this woman that needs her own employees to be dressed up in, let's be honest, quite embarrassing attire and sing back to her how amazing she is at the end of her think fest that goes for hours on end, which is just a slideshow of Elon Musk cutting shit with a chainsaw. Isn't it terrifying thinking about that being the level of intelligence that runs this country? Honestly, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If the mining industry of this country was more intelligent, I would settle just for that. They've clearly won. They won 100 years ago. That's just how things work. Private capital starts pooling in on itself, and then they just become this behemoth. But what is scary is the fact that you become so rich that you don't need to be smart anymore. That's what freaks me out. And so you start getting that. Whereas they should be looking at things like, say, the Future Made in Australia project, which is just making Australia a manufacturing base and realizing, oh, that means that we can sell all of our minerals to all of these factories to produce things that will be worth way more than us just digging rocks out of the ground and getting China to do it for us. We could be part of that entire production line. We would be rulers of the world as opposed to just backwater barons that we are here. But they're too stupid. Instead, they sit there and go, be happier while you do that. This is what consumes Gina Rinehart. You're not cheery enough when talking about how awesome I am. Sorry, singing about how awesome she is. Quite educational. Thank you very much for that, as always. It's always great when we get a little untitled video from Hancock Prospecting. It always exceeds expectation. How good was that? Wish I had a cult. All I've got is these brand new hats. Make Dutton opposition leader again. Going fast at friendlyjordies.com. Get yours before they come completely irrelevant. Now, a little while back we did a video. It was about the mining industry and how powerful it is. And people seem to deliberately take umbrage with it. In fact, they seem to be deliberately misinterpreting the point of it and saying over and over, oh, so what? You're just supposed to give up, are you? No, that wasn't the point of the video. The point was people were being very disingenuous, and then I got disingenuous points as a result. Now I'm mad, so I'm going to respond to those comments now. Look, it was on the same stream. That's why it's here. It was the big mining extravaganza before the election, and I do not promise that it might not be the last. They do come out with a lot of funny videos. Let's just go through the criticisms of the video. This is always fun. I don't know how or why you would imagine the profits from Australia's resources belong to anyone other than the American-based multinational companies. Very good. 808 likes too. Far out. He's a liked boy. Well done. Not on board with your message of we can't do anything, so we shouldn't try. That wasn't the message, mate. Maybe you should, I don't know, pay attention to the video in the future. Then you might actually get it. I love it when people just say after watching a video like, here's the upshot of it. Something that you didn't say at all. We already have politicians doing that. Don't need you doing it as well. We don't have politicians doing that. You're just wrong on your first sentence. What we have is politicians that have been taxing and regulating the mining industry. That was a big part of that video. Another big part of that video was that they are making the Future Made in Australia policy, which is huge. It's so ambitious. It's trying to turn Australia into like a Middle Eastern gas giant, but for renewables. That's the aim of it. I'm proud to have donated to your lawyers fund and have no regrets about that. You were fighting the good fight. You were taking on real big criminals. Seems like that has changed. Sad emoji. Oh, so in other words, this is what this man is saying. Endlessly try and kill yourself for my amusement, and I will continue to pay for that. But I misunderstood and misrepresented a video that you just released, and that's your fault somehow. You've changed. No, buddy. You're just stupid. Yes, it's very hard to fight the mining industry, but the attitude that we shouldn't try, guys, can you please pay attention to the video before commenting? It's too hard is a cop-out, I reckon. Oh, really? Really? And what have you done to fight the mining industry, good sir? What have you done in comparison to the Labor Party, which we've gone through as 100 years of them taking on the mining industry, is the key reason that they are continually out of politics. And then everybody just keeps... A big part of that video was just conflating over and over again the fact that the mining industry always has the Liberal Party to go to, endlessly, throughout history, except for that one time with Gordon. Once in its entire history for a nanosecond, and then he was cooed. How is that a cop-out? How is 100 years of them under the thumb, completely holding the government at their behest? How is this a cop-out just because you reckon? Can you actually address any of the points in the video ever? You just keep saying over and over, it's easy, just do this thing that every government ever that's tried to do it has been cooed. It's easy, it's a cop-out. We should be trying to tax them, which is exactly what the Labor Party has done. This is something that you just obviously didn't notice in the video at all, but I'll go through it again. They are paying record taxes under the Labor government now. They are paying record taxes. They will be paying more because there is more of their multinational tax avoidance laws that are world leading that over the next few years are going to start ramping up. Failing to do so will lead to Australia becoming a third world economy once mining dries up. Well, that's hundreds of years away, mate. But also on top of that, no, that is the entire point. That's one of the major points of the video that this guy just made that comment before even reading it. One of the major points is Future Made in Australia. Future Made in Australia is huge. Future Made in Australia makes sure that we have a future in Australia because it is about bringing an entire manufacturing base to Australia. This is huge stuff. Green technology, far as the eye can see, getting produced and manufactured in Australia. The entire point of this country would just be to decarbonise the economy. Now, how's that for a vision? Translation, you can't hope for anything better, kids. Just vote Labor and shut up. Yeah, more or less. More or less. But the thing is, on top of that, no, the whole point of that video is that the Labor Party is moving on to a different battlefield. The whole, oh, why can't we just have taxes like Norway only works if both sides of politics are willing to tax it like Norway. The Liberal Party has routinely showed that they are not going to do it. So you can sit there and simplify it as much as you want to just be like, yeah, I'm heaps smug and whatever. But it's like, do you have an alternative? None of you have an alternative. You just go like, politicians suck and they should do more for me personally while I do fuck all. Like, you've got nothing to say, really. But the point is that, yeah, vote Labor and shut up because they are making the Future Made in Australia policy. And the Future Made in Australia policy is going to make us unfathomably richer, unfathomably more educated, and a really good actor globally. A really good actor globally. We will be at the helm, at the absolute forefront of decarbonising the planet. That is a vision worth fighting for. So the argument here is that it's not a good idea because it's a bad economic policy or isn't ultimately good for the people, that it would be too hard to make reality, so why bother? Are you paying attention? Do you have a solution? Stop just whinging and saying, oh, it's too hard, so I shouldn't do anything. You're not doing anything. You're making YouTube comments. That's all you're doing. The Labor Party has a 100-year proud tradition of trying to tax them. Is still taxing them to this day. What are you doing? You just sit there and go like, oh, so this half-hour video that was extremely well researched and I actually don't have any comeback to anything that is in the video. It sucks because it makes me feel bad. I understand why stating the facts of all the failed attempts at taxing these corporations and the difficulties behind them is important, but the message shouldn't be that it's not worth the trouble. It should be to look at how far these corporations will go to subvert Australian interests for their own gain, and that we need to approach the situation in a way where real systemic change can be made without them being able to stomp it out of the public consciousness. I'm sorry, dude, but that is wishful thinking. That's not happening. And I'll tell you why it's not happening. Because the vast majority of people aren't interested in politics. And the people that are interested in politics, let's be honest, are mentally ill. There is no way that you are ever going to train the consciousness of 100% of Australia. You're not even going to get 50%. You're not even going to get 20%. Most people don't care about politics. The people that do care about politics usually only care as an extension of their own narcissism. And as a result of that, people are not even going to be voting on this. Because this is the whole thing. If you have unlimited money, this was all explained in the video. If you have unlimited money, which is what the mining industry has, they can spend literally hundreds of billions of dollars if they wanted to. But, you know, let's change back a bit. You wouldn't have to, but like a cool bill, easily like that. Figuring out what the public is thinking, because that's very easy to do in this day and age, and then specifically put a bunch of ad spend in micro-targeting their very specific concerns. I'm sorry, but sitting there and being like, oh, we should just raise the consciousness on a YouTube channel. No, the aim of it should be to point out to everybody, guys, the Australian Labor Party is moving beyond this shit of just like this old school Norway shit of, oh, let's just keep doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same result of just a shit government in for the next decade. Instead of doing that, how about we build an entire new industry so we are not at the behest of the mining industry anymore? How about we do that instead? Why is this not visionary? Why is this the only thing that unless you're copying Norway, which is one, impossible. 2, is completely different historic circumstances to us. 3, it's not even that good. Because even if it does go through, there is a bunch of problems with the sovereign wealth fund that never brought up. One of the major ones is that they sit there and say that, oh, it's just this great little, like, utopic thing. Guys, superannuation has $4 trillion in it now. 4 trillion. It has double or close to double what the Norwegian sovereign wealth fund has. It would have been good. That would have been great. It'd be great if we had access to our resources. That is not the way that Australia was developed. And so as a result of that, you have to look at reality and think, okay, let's move this country in a very exciting way that no one seems to give any credit to. Instead, what you have is just this Australia Institute funded propaganda where they just pump this out into the narrative of anybody that is remotely interested in politics and saying to them over and over again, oh, let's just be like Norway. Why can't we be like Norway? Never explaining why you can't. And the only reason that they are doing it is that they can get a bunch of lib lights elected, the teals. They're the ones that never shut up about this shit. They're the ones that are constantly sitting there being like, it's just crazy. Why are we just doing it? And then the only reason that they're going in is so that they can cut workers' wages. That's all this is. It's all just a big propagandic con to cut your wages. At the end of the day, that is the only reason anybody even focuses on this stuff. When you could be focusing on one, the Labor Party is regulating them heavily, is taxing them more than they've ever been taxed in the last decade and ramping it up further. You could be focusing on that, and you could be focusing on the fact that they are trying to create an entire new industry that will make the fact that we are just this backwards oligarchy run by a few fucking mining barons an obsolete, old event that's back in the future. Like, in fact, if you wanted the way to actually start taxing the oligarchs, the main way to do that is to make sure that they aren't the primo power in this country, that there are other interests in here that are just as crucial to the economy and just as large and could front up the capital to fight the information war. That's how you would do it. That's what Labor is doing with the Future Made in Australia Fund. There is a reason that Peter Dutton is so heavily against it. So your answer, friendly Geordies, is Labor should just keep chasing the LNP to the bottom. See, here we go. Like, why do you even bother? Is there even a point talking to someone who's that dumb? Like, if that is seriously what you got from that video, I really can't help you, buddy. Are you 5? This video made me visit the Australian government website voluntarily for the first time in my life. The essence of the Future Made in Australia policy is something that I have thought about for many years. Feels unreal to see it outlined in an official bill. I had no idea about it until this video for FFS. There you go. There you go. That's the message that you're supposed to get out of that video. Right there. That is the main message. The whole message is there is a new fight happening, guys, and this fight is winnable. And this fight could very easily be lost before it even began, which is creating that entire new green industry. This is the fight. Instead, you have the Australia Institute for its own nefarious, evil reasons sitting there trying to sink the Workers' Party that came up with the Future Made in Australia policy that is delivering it as we speak. But it is in its nascent stages. And if it had a few years to build itself, this is exactly the same thing with a bunch of these grand government policies. Grand government policies, yes, they're announced. Then they're rolled out. Then a decade later, they start actually bearing fruit. This is what the Future Made in Australia policy would be like. You look at that a decade from now, this is going to be bringing huge rewards for this country, massive rewards. Just in terms of being like a good global citizen, isn't it an exciting thought that instead of just being exporters of coal, we're going to be exporters of hydrogen and renewables and electric car batteries? That will be our main exports with Future Made in Australia, along with supercomputers. This is big, big stuff. They never get any credit for it. Instead, they just get sat there. The whole point of that video is to sit there and say, no, they're not just as bad as each other. They're not just going to a race to the bottom. That is not what's happening. That is just a lie. That is just a straight up lie. That's the first part of that video. The second part of that video is, this is huge. What this guy's cottoned onto is massive. And it's a winnable fight. But instead, people just keep harking back like it's 1970s Australia. And that's the big fight, to nationalise the mines or whatever. Guys, it's not even on the table. It's not going to happen. You can have these bunch of independents that just tell you exactly what you want to hear, or you can get on board with what is truly exciting.
Well, wasn't that fun? You know what's even more fun? You getting the hat. What's even more fun than that is you getting tickets to my show, Sydney, Melbourne, Katoomba. And I'll see you with loads more content before the election and after as well.